So, Batwoman fans, welcome to a brand new Batwoman review. So, some of you may be new to this channel, some of you may not, but you may already know that I was reviewing Batwoman from episode 1 to episode 6. I didn't review episode 7 or 8. Episode 9 was Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I said that I wanted to revisit Batwoman post-Crisis. Now, this episode, with the way it ended, was very, very interesting. And I wanted to just kind of give my thoughts on this episode as a whole, because I wanted to talk about that, and we will get to that, but also just because, you know, I kind of stopped reviewing Batwoman for a reason, and that's because while I didn't think it was a terrible show, I want to get that right off the bat, like, no pun intended there, but seriously, I'm not one of those people like, oh, this is a garbage show, this, that, and the other. I think it has its good moments. I think it most certainly has its weak moments. But most commonly, I find, is that it's just always at this kind of constant level for me, which just isn't really, wasn't satisfying enough to me as shows like Arrow or The Flash. Granted that those shows as well have had their run-ins for multiple episodes, even season long. For example, The Flash season 4 for me, big parts of The Flash season 5. So I just want to like preface that because I don't want you thinking I haven't enjoyed or disliked at times other CW shows that happen to be my favorite. So Batwoman just kind of kept that up for me to the point where I really enjoyed episode 6, but that was mainly the only episode out of all of them where I was just like, come on, like, are we not going to get more of that? And even though I didn't review episode 7 and 8 and so on and so forth, well, not really, because there was just Crisis, those were decent episodes, but, you know, here I am today to give my thoughts on episode 10 at the end of the day. And this episode, it just wasn't that great. This is kind of the thing. I know there's plenty of you guys who really enjoy this show, and I don't want to take that away from you. I trust you're watching this because you enjoy watching my opinion on certain things. You may not like hearing it about Batwoman if you really enjoy it, but you may enjoy something like me reviewing Titans or something. I don't know. Now, Batwoman, with this episode, as I keep saying, it had its good moments, you know, it had enjoyable moments, and quite often I echo that of Alice. She really is. Rachel Scarston is something that I've kept saying in the show that is one of the biggest highlights. She wasn't in this episode so much front and center, but obviously with that ending, it introduced this very interesting aspect post-Crisis, which is definitely another reason why I wanted to talk about this in the first place. And a lot of people were saying that ending with that other Beth, if you will, or Alice, or whatever you want to say, is a result of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, I have my theories of that, and I'm not necessarily sure it is, and I have a reason why, but as I keep saying, we'll get to that, because, yeah, I think I have quite a good reason, and I would love to hear your guys' opinions on that. But obviously, this episode surrounded at the beginning with that train not stopping. We had that awesome shot of Batwoman on the bike, but this whole scene where she saved, or, well, what she thought at the time she saved the train, springboarded the kind of theme of this episode with her being saved by that, was it like security guard of the subway, or was it like a police officer? I can't really remember, but there was quite a few references in this episode as well. I'll get to those, but they referenced him looking like Captain America, which was funny. But yeah, as I said, that springboarded because a lot of people were saying, oh, you know, Batwoman should kiss that guy, oh, like they're into each other. But of course, as we know, Kane is a lesbian, and this episode really wanted to springboard that representation for not only Kane, because everyone knows Kane is lesbian and gay, but they don't know Batwoman is that, and that definitely drove towards the back end of the episode. But this beginning scene was cool, even though I was like, really, Batwoman, you're gonna grapple hook, like, you know, like on those train tracks, you have like the little bit of the wooden planks in between, like that's gotta stop the whole force of a train, even though we found out it wasn't. It's just kind of like, you may call it as nitpicky, but like, would a hero really want to save the force of a train being stopped by a wooden plank on a subway track? I don't know, but hey, that's probably me being nitpicky, but these things bother me sometimes. But you know, it's hard not to do that when you get critical of shows. You see a lot more of these things, which is why I always like to say, if you're watching this, that, you know, a lot of people do watch these shows to just enjoy it and don't pick up on those things. But the more you look at things this way, the more you see a lot of writing, like in the writing in between the lines kind of errors that they make. But it doesn't really matter. It's not the biggest thing. So that whole train incident was caused by this hacker. I thought it was like a reasonably interesting enough plot for this episode, you know, the kind of villain of the week thing, if you will, you know, obviously accompanying the main villain in the CW shows. Of course, you have like Cicada in the Flash season 5 or Bloodwork, but you always have like these kind of weekly issues that the hero has to deal with. So this was interesting enough for me. Plus it introduced a really cool another Easter egg. Some people aren't fans of this. I don't really mind it, and that is the fact that they obviously shout out a lot of Batman-esque things, such as in this episode when they were investigating what caused the whole train incident in the first place. Lucius Fox said, ever since the Scarecrow incident, the trains run on an independent analog system, which makes them unhackable, which means in the past Scarecrow must have somehow hacked into the subway and caused the whole train incident, or like, yeah, maybe he hacked the trains to disperse some of his fear gas, you know, whatever. But you know, I don't mind stuff like that. It's a bit of world building, but some people don't like how there's lots of shout outs for Batman stuff. And that's a way to, like, I guess, in some people's opinions, tide those fans over or kind of keep that Batman-y esque vibe going. And also at the same time, with the typical kind of Batwoman radio lady talking about the city and whatnot, saying after the death of Oliver Queen, I think we all need a reason to smile. And that's what I was kind of looking forward to with this episode, seeing if there was any kind of post-crisis things. And of course, you know, just checking out Batwoman and seeing where it's at for me personally in terms of, will this has it found even more of a solid footing in the show, or is it still kind of the same vibe that wasn't terrible, but I just don't really, just isn't really for me, even though, you know, lots of people still can get along with it. So next I want to mention that Alice and Mouse scene, yet again, arguably the strongest thing in the show. Yet again, with that ending, it just solidifies how interesting that storyline is with Batwoman. And I do want to say, like, what would Batwoman season 1 be like without Rachel Skarsten's Alice? Of course, you could just say the writers would have, you know, introduced another villain, and I'm sure they would have been compelling, decently casted. But it does make me think, with all the other weaknesses the show has, in my opinion, what would it be like without it? And obviously after, you know, Catherine is now dead, as of course Alice killed her, Mouse pointed out that her gesture of love killing Catherine will not achieve the happy family that she wants with Kate and Mouse. So this episode springboarded for Alice that, oh, I need to find another way to kind of force Kate into the family that I want to create, and that was through well, we'll visit that in a minute. Now after this, we got another reference with Lucius Fox and Kate trying to, of course, trace the hacker, which led them to that kind of warehousey location, which reminded Kate of a Mr. Robot-y vibe. And if you guys don't know, Mr. Robot is a great show. It's actually recently just ended, but yeah, Mr. Robot, great show, cool reference. This episode was filled with quite a few of them. But it turns out that Sophie was already there. She then mentioned to Batwoman that, oh, my husband's left me because he thinks I'm lying to myself, and you know, maybe I am, which yet again referenced the whole kind of Batwoman coming out to Gotham City later on in the episode, which then would in turn send out a message for multiple characters in this episode. And this is at the point in the episode where that really started coming out in Kate Kane quite a bit, because when they're in the Batcave, Kate was wondering if she was kind of a fraud, because every time she put on the suit, she felt like she was lying to this city. And there was also a Paragon of Courage reference, and if she was meant to be the Paragon of Courage, she's not really doing, in her mind, a great representation of that. And then you know, it seems that Luke Fox has had the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths event explained to him, because he was talking about that whole singularity kind of, I don't know, timey-wimey, spacey-wacy explanation that he must have interpreted from Kate when she explained Crisis to him. Other than that, there wasn't like a whole bunch of Crisis stuff implemented. It was just interesting to think about that when watching these shows, all the shows, because Crisis did, you know, it started a whole new multiverse, or just universe, should I say, because this is now Earth Prime. Supergirl, of course, is on the same Earth. Catco, as we know from that article later, is on, you know, so there are changes. So cutting to the chase, case, this episode, this is where Batwoman finds the hacker in the high school. She finds out that she's just a girl who wanted to escape Gotham because her ex-girlfriend outed her to her parents that she was gay, and they wanted to disown her, and she wanted to get all that money that she was threatening to take from people to leave Gotham. And obviously this was quite emotional, and I felt that, I enjoyed this scene because Kate, obviously being behind that mask, this was like a driving force because she hadn't quite divulged that to everyone, that Batwoman is also gay. And it makes sense. Like, she was saying all of this stuff about her, like, you wouldn't understand it, this, that, and the other, and she was just standing there saying, oh, I wish I could probably tell you that, yeah, I've been where you've been, kind of thing, in a sense. So yeah, that was fairly interesting. Then it got to the point where Alice got involved. Alice, I didn't like this bit though. Alice manages to knock out Batwoman with a trumpet. I don't know, like that whole scene in the locker corridor, it was just a bit like, this is what I mean. It's just, I just don't really, I don't know. I love Alice, by the way, but I just don't really get on with this stuff. I don't know. It just doesn't. So now this is where we can resume that Mouse and Alice talk. So since, obviously, Mouse pointed that out, like, she's never going to join the family. So, like, Alice wanted to put her in a position where she would have nothing left. So she would join her family in a very twisted way of, I guess, looking at this. That if she outed Batwoman to the city as Kane, then she would have no choice to do that. But this didn't, of course, go to plan. The girl obviously just said 911. Alice at school with the bomb, la-di-da-da, like all of this plot. I'm not going to recap every tiny little minuscule detail. It was just okay. I mean, of course, I totally get the importance of the whole Batwoman, like by the end of the episode, the whole representation to Gotham City and stuff. I mean, for crying out loud, this episode was great for Batwoman in that terms because, this whole show is built upon a character who is gay. So, like, this episode showcasing that Batwoman to Gotham City is gay, like, do you know what I mean? It probably couldn't get better in that regard. But as, like, a typical episode of Batwoman with the other context of just the story and how that went, I just felt like it was a very typical, like, Batwoman episode to what I've watched in the first 6 episodes. As I said, maybe this isn't the episode for me to kind of so much judge this kind of show post-crisis, because I enjoyed, like, I didn't do a review on it, so you wouldn't necessarily know, the whole Alice's Tea Party, the whole Jacob Kane stuff. That's where a whole lot more spice came into it. So this episode just kind of had to tackle, like, this mediocre story whilst also trying to accomplish the whole outing of Batwoman and, obviously the representation of that and letting Gotham City know that at the same time. But I did think it was pretty interesting. I believe, with the whole CoverGirl magazine with Batwoman there, it said Catco, obviously it was a Catco magazine. Supergirl is now on Earth Prime with Barry Allen, Batwoman, everyone else. And it said Batwoman exclusive interview with Kara Danvers, who is, of course, Supergirl. So just in case any of you didn't pick that up, with the whole announcement that Batwoman is a lesbian, that was interviewed. Sorry, Batwoman was interviewed by Kara Danvers. You may have just thought it was a random interview, but no, that was a cool little Easter egg, I guess. I'm not saying it's like that they knew that this episode was kind of like just okay, and that's why they wanted to pack that punch, but at least that's how it kind of felt like to me. So I enjoyed it to a degree, but I felt like it was fairly mediocre. But then for me at the end, it was like, oh, what does this mean? Oh, like, with the whole Beth realization, because of course this episode we had Mary, who's not really too still happy with Kate, obviously having warned her about Alice, and we had the Jacob Kane scenes in prison. That's just got to be going on for a little bit. She's still trying to help him, but to cut all of that short, she saw somebody who looked like Alice in disguise going into the university, because she tried to contact that Dr. Campbell guy, and I can't remember that actor's name, but I swear he's been in a bunch of CW shows. But finally I'm getting onto it, that this led to that big reveal that Beth seemingly appeared in Kate's office, saying that I'm back from that semester abroad, and obviously Kate was like, WTF, like, who are you, practically interrogating her. And now a lot of people saying that this is a result of post-crisis. Now I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm not saying I know what this is. Obviously that is Rachel Scarston. It's apparently Beth. We have got Alice right now in custody at the Crows with Sophie whilst Jacob is in jail. Alice has been transferred to Sophie, so she's captured for now. Mouse is out there just chilling, probably got something else piping up. in the plan with Alice. Maybe it's to do with this whole Beth thing. But yeah, that is another Alice. That is another Beth, if you will. That is Beth. Now, yeah, I get why people are linking it to Crisis, because you could argue how that, like, this could be a result of what happened with the new, new universe being made or whatever, changing certain things. A lot of things have been changed already. For example, Lex Luthor owns the DEO in Supergirl, so on and so forth. So it's not a wild leap to think, oh, somehow Beth, but no. It still doesn't really add up to me as to how, if that was the case, obviously only the Paragons and a few select others are aware of the events of what happened on Crisis on Infinite Earths, thanks to the memory restorer through John Jones, and maybe some other ways. Like, other than that, everyone else isn't aware, all the citizens aren't aware. Mary wouldn't be aware of anything different or anything changed, even with changes. To them, it's always happened, right? So if Beth, this new Beth, has been there all along, then Mary wouldn't have been like, who is that going into the university? That's Alice, or something like that. So that's what's kind of making me think this is new and not to do with Crisis. But I'm not saying that as a fact. I could be wrong there. It's just as a speculation. So I would love to know what your thoughts are on this, original Beth coming back, pretending like she's been there the whole time. It's just been on a semester abroad. Like, what? What would make me think this is post-Crisis if Alice was completely rewritten into never being Alice and just Beth this whole time? That would be more of a result of Crisis on Infinite Earths, her never becoming Alice in the first place. But nope, Alice is still there, and we've got a Beth now. So, yeah, I don't know how this is happening, but it is interesting. It's making me intrigued. So, yeah, let me know all of your theories down in the comments below. But this episode, for me, it was okay. It was a typical episode of Batwoman, but it's just not like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's great, though. Like, I'm in a lot of my Batwoman reviews, I'm just echoing the same thing. Some of you are probably sick to death of hearing it, especially if you're big fans of the show. It's just that it's nothing spectacular. It's nothing great. Sometimes it isn't even good, even though there were good moments in this episode. But if I was to, like, give it a scoring overall, I wouldn't say just because there were some good moments, you wouldn't give it a good overall, because a lot of it was just like, it was okay. So I would say it was like average. I would say it was, I'm just repeating myself at this point, but that's what I did for a lot of my other Batwoman reviews, which is why this show isn't really a standout show to me on the CW like I've kept up with The Flash and Arrow, even though Arrow's ending now. So yeah, I would love to know if you felt the same. I might review next week's episode if you guys are interested, because as I said, like with this like being, I feel like an average Batwoman episode, maybe even some of the big fans will agree with me when I say that. Maybe I should give next week's episode a chance to see if they propel the story a bit more forward, with more than just like a typical kind of, oh, there's a hacker and she wants some money and I don't know. It will also be interested to follow up the whole new Beth storyline as well, I guess. But yeah, that was my thoughts on Batwoman, guys. Having reviewed it for 6 episodes, coming back post-Crisis, to me, it doesn't feel like too much has changed in terms of the quality of the show. Not a hater, just being honest here. It is what it is. I'm going to keep watching it. This is getting into a long video now, so yeah, hope you enjoyed it, guys. Leave a like on the video if you did. Subscribe, why not? You know, if you don't enjoy these Batwoman reviews, you don't have to agree with my opinion. You may enjoy some of my other videos that I'll probably leave in the cards above. I have Twitter, I have a Discord, but other than that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, Bat Family, in the next video. Goodbye.